some Viking stuff for you guys. Nick Baloney says, congratulations. I want to thank all three of you on your honesty. It's quite clear that you have all been Kirk haters, but as you see Kirk now doing the things you have asked for, and you have openly acknowledged him doing those things, that's a credit to your honesty and journalism on your shows. I hope people see that you tell it like it is, and sometimes you have to report news that may not be popular.
Yeah, that's basically it. Us, right? Kirk Cousins was paid a huge amount, and unfortunately with Zimmer, and this is on Kirk too, it didn't work. And then they brought in a coach, and we said, let's wait and see. And now, you know what? Kirk, statistically, not that great. But he's winning football games, and he's leading game-winning drives in the fourth quarter. And so, yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say, well, now his stats are bad. He's doing what you want. All we've ever asked is win football games, find a way, and have a clutch gene. Far more important to me than anything that's going to show up in the statistical summary of the game.
Yeah, I had a Cousins Crusader hit me up on Twitter yesterday and said, hey, Mackie.
Mackie Dad.
Looks like you're changing your tune on Kirk Cousins now.
Yes.
I said, well, Kirk is playing a lot better in situations, high leverage situations. And I'll say we saw signs of it last year too, but it's not, it's funny because the Cousins Crusaders think that he's been the same clutch, godlike quarterback his entire career.
Right.
And all of you haters out there refuse to acknowledge it. Mm-hmm. And I think what we are saying is, actually, if you dig a little deeper into the stats of his career, third downs, late game, going back 6-7 years, he has faltered good teams road, right? The overall stats don't tell the whole story. There are some hidden things here that sabotage the team.
Right.
No, that is not true. How dare you slander Kirky McClutcherton, the fourth quarter Pharaoh, right? So, he's doing things that warrant praise now that he wasn't doing even 2 or 3 years ago as a Viking, and so we are praising him.
Are the Crusaders, are they happy about the Vikings' success, or are they now sort of a little bit skeptical because Kirk's stats aren't what they can be when Kirk is just I'm curious. I guess my question is this: how many of the Crusaders even care about the team?
That's a good question, man. It's a really good question. I think there's a lot of people that are bigger fans of Kirk Cousins than they are about the Vikings team construction and everything over the years.
I just feel like that's the case.
Yeah.
It still feels sometimes like that weird forced marriage where hey, you finally have the quarterback here. The Vikings have been looking for stability. All right, we went out and they signed a quarterback to a huge contract that was out there in free agency. They ponied up. Minnesota sports went out and did something like that. We never do anything like that, even though there are examples of plenty of Minnesota sports teams ponying up for free agents. And then when he gets here and it's lackluster, there's this faction of this fan base, whether it was Kirk stans coming in or Vikings fans that are saying, why aren't you embracing the quarterback? We finally have it now. Well, because there was still warts in his game and you paid him a lot of money and there's high expectations. So it is a weird, very strange conundrum that Vikings fans always find themselves in.
And Kirk doesn't get a complete free pass for the relationship with Mike being terrible. Yes, a lot of that's on Mike and it's unfortunate. But I'm sorry, Kirk's an adult. And when you tell me that they didn't meet consistently, and it was Kirk that helped establish it, but they didn't meet consistently until Mike's last year, that's not all on Mike.
Agreed. Well, that is something,
and that's where it gets to be a little bit.
That Cousins, the blind Cousins backers, would take what you just said and laugh you out of the room and say, well, what if your boss,
just like the Panthers
did, right? Yeah.
Just like the Panthers did. The Panthers laughed me out of the room.
Yes, they did. Our guy, Lawyer Chase here, said, one thing I do not think we have talked about was the recent play. I'm sorry. One thing I do not think we have talked enough about was a recent play by Kirk Cousins. Specifically, before the snap, the defense was clearly offsides, and Kirk not only snapped the ball instantly when he noticed that there's a free play opportunity, he went for a deep pass to Jefferson. As someone who is critical of Kirk, I give him credit for plays like that. It seemed like he improvised on the fly and made a smart, savvy decision. My only hope is that this is consistent. History tells me otherwise. I hope Kirk proves me wrong. He's got another thing too, but let's stop there for a second.
That's
I was like clapping in my living room.
I almost fell from the press box because I'm like, oh my God, he's doing it. Now, I know, there are QBs who consistently do a great job of capitalizing on free plays. And I don't know, this is probably not available, but in Kirk's time here since 2018, I would love to see the amount of times that he's done something just like that.
This might be a question for Booney. Actually, I'm gonna write this one down here because what I think it's almost more on the center because so you get it's a blink of an eye. A guy jumps across the line and he's gonna jump right back. Snap. You don't have time for him to jump across the line and then wait for the quarterback to say something and then the ball is snapped. I almost feel like you have to have it known between quarterback and center. If that guy jumps, quarterback, that ball's coming.
Right.
And and by the way, it's like if it fumbles and they pick it up, who cares? It's a free play anyways. Right. So I almost feel like it's a Bradbury credit just as much as it's a Kirk credit, or it's a communication thing between the two of them. Because the center isn't like, oh, hey, what should we do? He's offsides. Oh my God. Like the center has to snap it almost before the quarterback can say anything.
Yep. Total guess on my part, but it feels like previously we have seen that snap get off, flag is down, free play, and like Kirk checks it down. I know I've seen that.
Or he doesn't get the snap off. Or Bradbury doesn't get the snap off.
Yeah, but I mean, just take the deep shot.
Yep.
Chase is exactly right.
Yep. And this also might be Kevin. These are like the attention to detail things that if your head coach for 8 years is spending zero time in quarterback meetings, not that the offensive coordinator and the quarterback's coach, like they should be talking about this stuff too, but when your head coach is paying attention to those details, I'm sure he is, and he's obsessed with situational football, which he should be.
Yep.
Part of that is probably, hey, there's going to be like 10 times a year where the opposing team jumps into the neutral zone and we get a free play. We need to cash in on those free plays once in a while. Mm-hmm. So let's be head up. And then the other part from Chase here says, I would ask to be appointed as the chief rules officer for Purple Daily's leadership cabinet. My 10-hour days of analyzing rules in law school will allow me to settle any disputes on Write That Down, provide feedback as to cap and contract rules, and settle issues relating to calls by officials. Chase, we would love someone to help settle Write That Down disputes. And so welcome in. You are the chief rules officer.
I like it.
Of Purple Daily.
I like it.
Awesome. Let's see here. D. Sam via YouTube says, love the Vikes, but Kirk needs to prove he's clutch against good teams on the road and when the spotlight is on him on national TV against good defenses. I'm not being negative, but the guy is awful against good teams in the spotlight. Look at his Monday night game against the Eagles, for example. Yes, this is definitely an empty box that he has not checked much in his career.
I think the first one that comes to mind here that he can maybe start breaking some of that is the Buffalo game. That game is still probably the most. It was always, I think, the most daunting on the Vikings schedule when the schedule came out 6 months ago. I still expect, as it goes right now, the Vikings probably lose that game, but that's a statement game. You could go into the Super Bowl favorite in Buffalo and potentially dagger them with a great performance. I think that eventually changes some of that narrative. If you go into the Buffalo Bills stadium and get a big win, I think it starts to shift a little bit more.
Statement game.
Statement game.
Statement game.
Statement game.
I agree with the point. I think what makes this a little bit difficult is you face so many average to bad teams that you still need to beat those teams as well. So, yes, his point is spot on. And Kirk needs to show more in big games against good teams. But the reality is, I feel like until at least the last 2 years, he wasn't even accomplishing this against the Detroits and Chicagos. Oh. And so I'm taking this whole thing right or wrong. Call me naive, Pollyanna, whatever. I'm taking this whole thing as a lot of steps in the right direction.
Yes. And unfortunately, in terms of opportunities to beat good teams on the road in the regular season, now that the Dolphins are starting a third-string quarterback, there's only really 2 of those games left on the schedule.
So that's the thing.
At Buffalo, at Green Bay, right?
It's not like a gauntlet, right? Oh my God, they're going to play 4 consecutive tough games. Yeah. So, but by 2019 and certainly by 20, what Kirk has done the last 3 games, we grew to be skeptical he could even do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of how I feel about it.
T. Kubler via YouTube says the number one ranking in success rate, which is the stat we threw out on Purple Daily a few days ago, is also due to the lack of penalties on the offensive line this year. All of the holding calls and false starts last year were drive killers and why the Vikings had so many 3-and-outs. That was a huge thing. I don't know what the coaching difference is or if it's more just like cadence, communication, clarity, but the Vikings were one of the most penalized teams in terms of false starts and offensive holdings last year, and they are one of the least so far penalized teams in those two categories this year.
Offensively, there is no question, 5 games in, the attention to detail offensively is so much better. And it's a small thing, because when you're not actively screwing up small things, we just sort of begin to take it for granted, right? It's not like we're sitting there, hey, he could have false started there and he didn't. But if you just think about the amount of across the board, small things we're seeing done well now that the last 2 years weren't done well. And I mean, this all comes back to the grand points that we used to talk about, which is, Kirk has a role and Kirk is very good at some things. But as far as taking the offense by the throat and saying, we are not going to hold, that's not him. That's Brady. He can do that, but he's Brady. So I think this goes back to Kevin O'Connell is maximizing his team for the most part, playing smart. Now, defensively, I have some concerns because it shifted from Zim being all in on defense. But there is no question in my mind that everything that this offense is trying to do, which, by the way, is being done way more in depth now. They are, if they were playing basic math offense in 2021, they are now, into calculus in 2022. But that being said, I think it's the attention to detail and situations that have really changed.
Is trigonometry next, or is trigonometry before calculus? What's the next level?
I thought trig was after calculus, but I'm very old and I forget, and I didn't take them.
I think it went algebra, geometry.
Yes, it did.
And then
pre-calc.
Yep, that was my. I did pre-calc junior year.
Trig's the last thing, right?
Trig's the next thing. I don't know.
Trig's the next thing. It's not
required. There's some astrophysicists out there that probably went beyond trig.
Okay, no, I'm saying trig is if you are a really good math student in high school, you would go from algebra, geometry, spatial relationships. By the way, unless you're going to deal in those.
Engineering,
Yeah, no, I know. But I mean, I didn't need it. It was such a waste of my time personally. I would have preferred
I failed college math twice. So.
Well, it's tough. Calc, pre-calc, calc, trig. But I think trig is trig would be the last thing. Yeah. The Vikings would basically be the greatest show on turf if we get to trig.
Okay. I just want to clarify. I wasn't sure.
Geometry.
Around this.
Specialty
Took
class.
Stats instead. Got a D+ and literally did the Tommy Boy cartwheel in St. Cloud when I got that news.
Stats.
I had every general taken care of except for math, and it literally until senior year, there was one last checklist on my general list for graduation at St. Cloud. Number 3, math. I failed twice, but stats counted, and I got a D+. And man, that was a hard-earned D+.
Good for you.
Amazing.
I failed it.
Amazing.
I hated stats.
Tyler Wilcox here says, this is probably too late for Feedback Friday. Oh, no, it's not.
Well, never it is.
But I had a thought about the defense. Not letting Donatel off the hook. He's being too obstinate. But what if the defensive personnel is just that bad? Maybe the shell coverage is just the admission that the only hope for a defensive stop is to make the opposing offense run as many plays as possible so they either mess up or somebody makes a play to get a turnover. Is Ed Donatel sort of conceding the lack of speed on defense here and maybe some shaky young players, or what do you think?
I think no. I get the point, but no. I just think that they are. I think that the system or scheme that they're trying to run does not fit the personnel. And look, I mean, this personnel, a lot of it comes from what Mike did. And Mike geared this personnel, and I know it melted down eventually, but it was very good at one point. Mike geared this towards his scheme. This is not his scheme now. Yeah. So, no, I think that this is trying to fit players into a scheme that across the board doesn't fit them all. And That's, again, why I'm curious. And I get the problem, okay? So I get that this is not a simple fix for Donatel. But at some point in time, I think if this team continues to score points and win games, you're going to have to morph things a little bit to try and fix the potential leaks. So, no, I do not think that I don't think there's any well thought out reason why we're seeing what we're seeing.
The last few Feedback Friday questions here presented by our friends over at Federated Mutual Insurance Company. Just an amazing company if you're looking to elevate your business to another level through risk management tools and resources. These people know what they're doing. A lot of them are also Minnesota sports fans that I've gotten to know over the years. And they're one of us, so to speak, headquartered in Owatonna. So find out how they can help your business like a great offensive line could at federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. All right, David Bruss says, do you think the Vikings are still learning both the new offensive and defensive schemes? Do they have the leadership from both sides of the ball to continually get better and become a team that's on point as the playoffs get closer? I feel like this is one of those Batman scripts.
Yeah.
Will they be able to beat good teams on the road when December gets here? And what rookies will step up to take over a starting role on defense? Tune in tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Bam.
I'll sum all of this up by saying, how much better do you think the Vikings can get this year?
Offensively, I think you will continue to see growth. I think it's going to be steady. I think that we are seeing this. I think we're seeing the growth in the introduction of new things as they decide, rightfully so, that Kirk is probably, and the rest of the offensive players become more comfortable. Defensively, I have questions. Yeah, I mean, can they improve? Absolutely. Should they? Absolutely. Am I as sold? I am confident that I can sit here right now in October and tell you, I think in a month, the offense is going to look smoother. And it's already ascending. Can I do that for the defense? Not yet. So I don't know. And if they can't improve it, I think it's going to eventually create problems. I think that 20 points per game is going to go way up if they don't make adjustments.
It seems like they're scratching the surface still, obviously, on offense, which is great because you're 4-1. There's concepts that are being deployed. There's been success rates that have been deployed on 3 wide receiver sets and the 11 personnel. It's now getting a little bit better situationally. It's cleaning things up here and there. You know, they haven't punted as much. Like that's what's been so great about this offense. But the defense, outside of maybe getting Danielle Hunter, getting more pressures and getting after the quarterback, I just don't know if there's a lot more to turn the key there. I think the majority of that defense is what it is. The only maybe X factors on it is if like a Caleb Evans and Brian Asamoah and Andrew Booth, these rookies step in and all of a sudden are just studs, which again just seems too far-fetched. They might step in and have some nice contributions, but I think it's probably too much to ask 3 rookies come in and all of a sudden change your defense. But the offense, yeah, I don't think we're even seeing the ceiling yet.
No. Jason Feinhag says, thoughts on creating a GoFundMe account to get Kirk Cousins some more bling? Big Chain Kirk is clutch. I'm all for this. We should set something up. I don't think he's going to pay for it on his own, but if we can get him, you know.
What's the guess on what Darasaw's chain costs?
Oh,
10 grand.
Yeah, 10 G's at least. Over 10 G's.
For sure.
Okay.
I bet that thing's 10 grand. Yeah.
So, speaking of Kirk, did you guys see the clip that appeared again of him mic'd up while playing for Washington on Twitter?
I did not, no.
Okay, at the end of it, he said he's talking to a teammate or a coach and says the Creed thing.
Oh boy.
Came out that he liked Creed, but he really wasn't that big a fan. He's talking about music he likes, and he's like, I listen to a lot of contemporary Christian, which is not surprising, and then he names a band that he loves. I don't think it's a Christian band. I think it's just a band. And then he brings up the Creed thing, and he's like, yeah, it came out. I like Creed because I think he likes them, but he's not like he's not a huge fan, which I thought he was.
Well, why does he perpetuate it? Because he brought it up with Kyle Brandt the other.
He indicated he thought it was funny. He's basically indicated while talking to the coach, he thought it was funny, because he is a weird dude. Like I think Kirk amuses himself, much like me, with things that he thinks are funny, but the rest of the world might not really think is that hysterical.
But what's funny is that no one blinks an eye when hearing that his favorite band is Creed. Everyone's like,
right,
that makes sense.
It checks out.
But we should find, Dex, that clip at some point? Because like he explains the whole thing.
I think he's probably lying because he knows he's mic'd up.
And if it's a clip from when his time in Washington, I mean that was 5-6 years ago. He could now be embracing Creed way more than he was when he was with Washington.
No, he said he liked him.
No.
Find the clip. Find the clip. It's actually hilarious because it's
I don't
Kirk
mind
being
Creed.
Kirk.
Creed, with Creed, it's great. Early 2000s corny music.
Oh, come on,
It's
now,
fine.
man. You know,
I just heard.
as well as I did. Thanks, Kermit. It's all about the return now of Blink 182. That's what it's all about.
I love me some Blink, and I love me some grungy adult
Chris Long
contempt that type of music. I love that entire my Spotify most played is from 2002 to 2009. It is that entire era. I have not changed.
Huba Stank on.
I have not.
1962 to
A
1969.
Daughtry song came on the other day, Phil. I meant to text you. Thought of you about that, but
Love me some Daughtry.
but no, I am not. I mean, I paid pretty decent money to see Stapleton, and I bought those tickets like 7 months ago when they first went on sale. And even I'm seeing a comedy. Taylor Tomlinson, who's a great stand-up comedian, she's coming to Minnesota in January. And because of Blink having 2,000 plus people in the waiting room, when I got in the waiting room for Taylor Tomlinson tickets the same morning and era that was going to go, I was the second in line. So shout out to all the Blink fans because I was able to secure very nice tickets to see one of my favorite stand-up comedians in person for the first time.
There you go.
Blink tickets though are expensive as hell.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Chris Long said he paid $130
Yeah,
to sit near the top of the X.
and we were talking to him, Phil, at the WoW game in the locker room yesterday, and he was like, "Yeah, we were gonna take the girls, we were gonna take the kids, but then we realized like, probably not worth it." It's like, yeah, like why would you take as much as I'm all for family fun?
Can't pay $130 for like your your 6-year-old who won't appreciate it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
can't
tough.
do that.
Yeah, leave the kids out.
That's a lot for a ticket.
Bloody Soup 74 says it would be cool if the Vikings and Bills got to the Super Bowl, the battle of the losers of the big game. That's probably one of the likelier Super Bowl matchups. The Bills versus blank, Bills versus blank. It's probably like the fifth most likely. Actually, it might even be higher than that. But it's one of the 5 most likely Super Bowls. I'll bet you right now.
So to play off the our topic, I think it was on PD earlier when we talked about this. Okay, and Phil, your point is you want the Vikings to go if and when they get to a Super Bowl, you want them to win it, and it's almost, in your opinion, not worth going if you're not going to win it. And I said, well, I still want them to get there if they lose because I'm just curious to see what it would be like in this town while I'm an adult to see the Vikings make that game. I will say this, though. If the Minnesota Vikings played the Bills and lost, that would be really devastating. Like, because at that point, you drop to 0-5. They finally break their curse. Mm-hmm. Like that would basically be, in some ways, the Cubs playing the Cubs.
The Cubs playing
in the World Series.
Well, it was like the Cubs playing the Cleveland Indians a little bit, right?
But Cleveland was 1948, and the Cubs were 1908, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. But my point is, the devastation in this town, if you played the Bills, and now it's 0-4 against 0-4, two, really good franchises, the devastation if you lost to the Bills would be pretty massive.
Yeah, I would be happy for Stephon Diggs, but obviously there's no scenario in which the Vikings lose the Super Bowl in which I would be like thrilled the day after on behalf of the franchise. So
I'm just saying I think that would be devastating to lose to Buffalo.
Devastation. All right, that's your Feedback Friday. You can always send us messages throughout the week, and we stockpile. We try to get to as many as we can, and we appreciate all you guys, all your questions, and everything you send in through the SKOR North app. And don't forget, on Sunday, it is a Vikings watch party at Surly Brewing Company and a live taping of Vikings Vent Line with a hot mic. So if you want to stumble up there and give your 2 cents
keep it clean.
What happened, please don't get us fired. All right, we'll see you guys. Mackie and Judd.